It is important because I am where I am because somebody gave back. If they didn't, I might not have been here. The company is named after someone who believes in that. So it is my core, it's in my heart, it's me.
Hello and welcome to the Ndini podcast. I'm Sandra Chuma. Every week, I'm bringing you conversations with bold, inspiring, trailblazing, and influential women of African descent. These are women from all walks of life, women who are entrepreneurs, artists, social activists, athletes. Each one of them, in their own way, is changing the narrative on what it means to be an African woman. They'll be telling us about their journeys and sharing their secrets to success. And I hope that by hearing their inspiring stories, you will be inspired.
Hello.
Ntsiki, good morning.
Hi, good morning. How are you?
I'm fantastic. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
I have to preface our conversation with the fact that I don't drink wine.
You don't drink wine, so let's start there. Let's get to drinking.
So yes, let's get me drinking.
I've got people who don't drink, but they're the ones who speak a lot about wine. You can swear they're drinking.
I'm excited to be talking to you, and I'm especially excited to be talking to you about wine. And let's start with the fact that you are the first Black woman South African winemaker. What does that mean to you when you hear that?
It means responsibility. It means being in a position to be able to pass the bat to someone, being in a position to use the bat to pull someone up. Hence, I'm saying responsibility, because where I am, it means whatever I do, I need to think more about others. It's never that easy to do, but it's easy to think about it, but the actioning is always the tough one because it needs a lot, especially if you're not in a position of being able to do at that moment.
So we'll talk about the journey to you becoming the first South African Black woman winemaker. But when you set out on this journey, was that a goal? Was that one of your ambitions?
Looking back, I think at the beginning, I didn't know, because I got to the industry without knowing what it was and what it's all about. So what happened was basically, it was something that I got by chance. And I can say that it's one of the things that made me realize that you don't get born with passion for something, but you learn things and become passionate about them.
So let's actually start at the beginning. You grew up in a rural village in KwaZulu Natal, as I understand it.
Yes, I grew up in KwaZulu Natal in a small village called KwaVuthela, and I grew up with my grandmother. I went to school like every young child growing up, go through stuff, and finished my high school. I worked as a domestic worker for a year. And from there, when I got a scholarship through the recruitment that was done, because the recruitment was done at school while I'd already left school, but the teachers looked for me and gave me the application forms. And basically, I think with those things, I always say, when something is meant for you, it's meant for you. You'll be found wherever you are. And that's what happened. And then I applied and I got accepted at the university. And when the South African Airways scholarship came on board, and they were like, we'll pay for your studies as long when the university takes you, we'll pay for your studies and we'll pay for everything. And for me, that was like basically at the turning point.
So you said that you'd already left school. So what was it about you that you think was so compelling or so striking that your teachers felt the need to come and tell you about this opportunity?
Well, I think at school there are those kids who are, I'm not sure if I'm going to call myself a good kid. I think I was a good kid. Yeah, I was a good kid, shame, poor me. I think with the brains I had, the teachers felt that I should be told of this opportunity.
What did you want to be when you were growing up, when you were still at school?
Well, when I was at school, initially I was going to do civil engineering because my grandmother had always told me about land surveying. And she always said she can see me with those things they use, the land surveyors use. And she always spoke about me being a land surveyor. And I was like, okay, if I do civil engineering, there's land surveying in there, so I'll have a big package of the job that my grandmother likes me to do, but in a bigger picture. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do that. And then when I got to matric and everyone was all about chemical engineering, there was that phase where we're all excited about certain things. And I was like, okay, chemical engineering, yeah, sure, I'll do chemical engineering. So there was just all those turns. But yes, it was the engineering side of things that I wanted to do. And I think looking at where I am with winemaking, it's still chemistry.
So you graduate from high school and you said that you went to work as a domestic worker for a year. What was that experience like and what did you learn from that experience?
Well, when I went to work, I think I was blessed, still blessed, in the sense that I worked for, it's an extended family. And when I was working there, they had said, okay, fine. As you're working, what do you want to do? And I said, I wanted to do chemical engineering. They're like, okay, fine. I applied at Mangosuthu Technikon. They were going to pay for me. So I was going to do my chores in the morning, go to school, come back, do my chores, attend my work. So that was going to be. But I was prepared to do that because I knew I wanted something.
So this is when the teachers came and found you and told you about this scholarship for winemaking?
Yes. Then I was called at school that, okay, fine, you need to get our application forms here to study winemaking. And I was like, okay. And then I applied. And then I remember when SAA called, they were in a meeting at that time. And then when they were discussing these forms, and then they called and then they told me that, okay, they are thinking of giving me the scholarship, but there's one issue. The university is in Afrikaans. And I was like, oh yeah, I'll learn. Like it felt so easy to say I'll learn. Until I got to the university and realized that Afrikaans wasn't just I'll learn kind of thing. So,
wow.
But yeah.
So literally all of your classes and all of your courses were in Afrikaans?
Yep, it was in Afrikaans.
So describe that first year for me. What was that like?
First year, I'm from a community where it's all Black people. And then I'm in a place now where it's all white people. They speak something I don't understand. That was my first day actually on campus. And I was like, I was standing, it was above the library, and I was supposed to be going to another hall where they were going to be basically explaining stuff. It was orientation time. And I stood there literally lost. Like there wasn't even, when you feel like you want to think, but there's nothing to think. You're just stuck. Until one lady came, it's like one of those where you'll see a Black person and you run to that person. It's like, oh wow, there's someone. So, but she saw me standing there and she came and she was like, can I help you? And lucky enough, she was speaking Xhosa. I'm Zulu, so it's this almost same language. And she was like, okay, I'll take you to where you're supposed to go. And she was going to the same place. Every time I talk to her, I'm like, do you remember that first day? And she's like, I don't remember. And I'm like, well, I was on the receiving side. I remember.
So you're in an environment where you're totally lost. You're studying in a language that you don't understand. You're studying a subject that you know nothing about. How did you get through that?
What kept me going was there was no turning back. One thing I knew that I cannot go back. If I go back, what am I going to do? There was no other option. I think the biggest issue that we get to sometimes in life is like when you always give yourself options, then you're not going to give it your all. You're not going to fight for it. But when there is no option, you will fight for something.
Did you enjoy your time at school?
I did. There were tough moments and there were exciting moments. I think one of the things also that I did when I was actually at the university was I went to the student counseling. And I said to them in my first year, I was like, okay, chances are I'm going to fail my first year. So I went to counseling and I was crying and I'm like, chances I'm going to fail my first year, but I cannot fail. I need help. And they were like, okay, fine, we're going to be seeing you all the time. So if it happens that you fail, the university will not kick you out because we will back you up because you are seeking assistance. Thank God I passed. But I mean, it was like one of those where like, there's just this, it can't be. And so I did that in my first year. And then I literally just threw myself into everything. I threw myself into everything, and the culture was different. I had to learn the culture. I stayed at the hostel, the university on campus, and the food was different. The songs that were being sung were different. And I remember when we had to go to our first year student dance, and you're like, what is that? And then you have to dress up and be all. So it was fun. And going to the dance, it's like first year's dance, and you're all dressed up and sitting in formal dresses and tables and all set. And so it was things that I didn't know. I think also I went there with an open mind of learning.
So that was one thing to go in with an open mind. But tell me about the actual nuts and bolts. Like, what do they actually teach you when you're in wine school?
So basically, our first year, it was like basic science. It's like chemistry, physical science, mathematics, biology, and all those other things. So what we did is in our first year, some of the courses that we could attend with the forestry group, we attended with the forestry group because that was regarded as an international course. So they were given in English. But what was basically for the agriculture side that we were dealing with, it was in Afrikaans. So we attended that. And then second year, that's when we start really learning about winemaking. What is wine? How is it made? Different types of wines. And soil science, the science of planting, and learn about viticulture, which is grape growing. But also because I didn't know these things, what I did is in my first year, I went and worked part-time at one of the wineries at Delheim. So I worked there in my first year. And I remember when I went for my interview, they asked me if I know anything about wine. I told them, no, I don't, but I'll learn. And when I left, they gave me a bottle of wine, which I kept at that time because I was like, yeah, I've got a bottle of wine. And then obviously at that moment, it was still like thinking of the first taste that I've done, which was horrible. So there was no way I was going to open it. So I learned at Delheim doing tastings, tasting different wines, working at the winery during harvest, plus attending my classes. So those two, it helped me actually to understand what I was doing.
And so you graduate, and then what was next for you?
Graduated in 2003, and then the search for jobs started. At that moment, Delheim was going to hire me, but I knew they have a winemaker, they've got an assistant winemaker, they've got a viticulturist, and I was like, so where am I going to fall exactly? And I couldn't see where I'm going to fall because I wanted to be either in viticulture or in winemaking. While I was studying also, there was that moment of confusion because there was one lecturer, he was lecturing us viticulture. He was so good. It made viticulture so interesting and exciting. And I was like, I want to be a viticulturist. And then there'll be another professor, I think Shelteron, he will come and teach us winemaking. And I'm like, I want winemaking.
So what was it that appealed to you about both? Like with viticulture, what was it that you were interested in?
Nature. I was always going to be in nature. I was always going to be outside. So that's what I liked about it. Winemaking, it was this changing, like the harvest. For me, it was buzzing. One of those days where, it's like a 24-hour moment. It's a cutthroat, it's rushing, it's adrenaline. So there was just these aspects of it. But when I got my first job at Stella Kaia, I could do both, so which was great.
So tell me about your time at Stella Kaia, because you were there for quite a long time.
Yep, I was an antique. So when I started at Stella Kaia, I remember I went for an interview because I told my guardian, Jablan, I'm like, I've been applying for jobs and I can't get anything. And I said to him, I know that I can work at Delheim, but they've got a winemaker, they've got an assistant, they've got a viticulturist. So I'm not quite really stranded, but I would like to get a job as either an assistant winemaker or an assistant viticulturist. And then he was like, oh yeah, he's got a friend whom the winemaker is resigning. And that was Stella Kaia. And then I went for an interview. The owner took me for a cellar tour to show me the winery first. As I'm walking there and he's explaining things, I wasn't hearing a thing. All I'm thinking, I'm like, just hire me. This place is beautiful. Yeah, and then we sat for an interview and then basically they hired me.
So I'm interested to know what you think, Ntsiki. So you walk in there, you're Black, you're a woman. Do you think that any of that was a factor in them choosing or not choosing you for a job?
So I applied in one of the wineries. They had advertised a viticultural job. And I got a phone call later, said, we're sorry we can't hire you because we're a woman. We're looking for a guy. I cried. I thought to myself, what the heck? I cried. And I said, so why didn't you send me an email? And she was like, I'm sorry, I can't send you an email on that.
Yes, I'm sure they didn't want to put that in an email.
Yes, because that was going to be a big problem if they have sent an email, because then I was going to forward the email to whoever. And then, yeah. So
and what
then
do you think was the thought process behind them choosing a man?
Well, according to them, I think they believe that, like, there's been that belief that, when you're working in the viticulture, it has to be a man because you're driving in different slopes, you're dealing with tractors. It's only now that we're finding there's more women winemakers, there's more women getting on board. There's still not a lot of viticulturists as women.
So are there a lot of Black people, or I guess more Black people in the wine industry now?
There are more coming in, but still it's, a drop in the ocean.
So you spent many years there. What would you say was your proudest moment while you were working at that winery?
I think one of the things that I worked, when I was working at Stella Kaia, the owner of Stella Kaia, Dave, I remember asking him, I said to him, did you study leadership? And he asked me why. Because what had happened is when I started working, and I worked 2004 and 2005, and he said to me, if I need a consultant, I need to hire a consultant. It's my choice whom I want to consult for me, because I'm the one who's going to be working with the consultant. So I managed to get someone who I had worked with before, and I was like, actually, this will be a good consultant for me to assist me and teach me actually the ropes in winemaking, because as much as we've studied, when you get to practical life, it's different. And he was hands off. Sometimes I think too much hands off. So I had to make decisions, do stuff. And that's how he taught me basically to do my work. He was hands off and everything. When you're like, I don't want to disappoint this person. I need to be the best I could be. But at the same time, I don't want to disappoint myself. So I think the way he let me run things for me gave me that independence and just the trust that he had. Okay, one of the proudest moments. Let's see. There's a couple of them, I think. I'm not sure if I'm going to call them proudest moments. I'm going to call them the learning moments, because more of the learning moments also made me proud. There was a moment where I had my team who striked on me. It was harvest, and 1:00, everybody, they've cleaned up and then tools down, and they walked out. And I'm like, what is going on? The cellar supervisor, we always called him Pa. He was an older guy, and he's said to me, I will stand by your side, but don't allow anybody to touch the work tomorrow. Have them talk to you what is going on, because that's not they should do things. So when the team came back tomorrow, I was tiny at that moment, Shane, poor little girl. So when they came in the following day, they're taking their tools to start working, and I was like, nope, nobody's going to work. Let's have a meeting. And I was like, okay, you guys going to tell me what happened. So we had to sort the issue. And nobody wanted to talk. And I said, fine, if you don't want to talk, you're not going to touch the work. I'm going to go pick up some people who are going to assist me today until you guys tell me what's going on. Then we can continue working, but not like this. And then people started talking, and then we had a conversation, and we sorted the issue out. And the solar supervisor was like, at the end, I'm proud of you. Now I know I can stand by your side because you're not going to chicken out. So, yeah. And because also he even said, and he said, I must understand that I'm being the winemaker after they're used to having an old person who was a winemaker. It was an old guy, Afrikaans, white guy. So it was actually for them, I do understand, it was a complete shock that you have this person and then all of a sudden you have the complete opposite as your boss.
So it was during your time at Stella Kaia that you were named the Woman Winemaker of the Year. What did that mean to you?
Well, it was great to get the recognition because it was my wines. I submitted my wines for competition, and I think my very first one, actually, that won a medal. It was the very first one I made in 2004, which I blended in 2005 and bottled it early 2006. It got a gold medal at Michelangelo Wine Awards. And That part was amazing because the wine industry is white. And then what happened was when we were sitting obviously at the awards function, and my wine got called. We were only 2 Black people there for the function. And then the waiters and waitresses were all Blacks and coloreds. So when my wine was called, the waiters and waitresses, they screamed and they got all excited. They were cheering. And that was very emotional for me because I didn't know they knew me, for starters. It's like, oh, okay. So, and I remember I just stood up and I ran to them and then we all screamed together. And then I came back to obviously go pick up the stuff, the medal. But for me, it was an emotional moment and like one of those that it humbled me and made me understand that actually I'm not alone. And being crowned Women Winemaker of the Year was one of the second things. I was like, wow, that was great because it was one of my wine again, which I'd made in 2006. It was a Cabernet Sauvignon. Again, it was a recognition of the quality of wine I make and also the personality, the person and everything that surrounds.
So explain to me, what is wine?
Okay, wine is made of grapes. It's a fermented beverage made of grapes. While the ciders are made of what? So you find them made of fruits. So wine is basically a product of grape. Hence, there's this argument around how can you say you've got orange wine? Because the name wine is actually from the word vine. That's the origin. So it comes all the way from that side on the origins and all that. But well, we're just going to let it be.
So let's fast forward. So you spend several years at Stella Kaia. You win awards for your wines. You're highly recognized as a winemaker. And then what?
Well, while I was at Stella Kaia, I knew that at some point I wanted to start my own company. And I made sure that as I was working at Stella Kaia, I was running Stella Kaia as my own company. I took it to myself to say, this is my company. So much so that there will be people resigning. And I remember this one time when the accounts lady resigned, I'm like, I've got clients, they have to get their wine. I need to make invoices. I sat on the phone with her and I said, can you please just guide me how to make an invoice? As she will like tell me you do this and then I'll click that and then write it on the side so that I've got the notes for the next time to be able to look at the notes and do this and make it work. And so I was one of those who, there was no job that is not mine. I'll do anything. I was doing anything that needs to be done. I think also I learned that from my boss because Dave, he used to, like, if I've got a meeting, he'll come and ask us if we wanted coffee and he'll go make us some coffee. If he'll get to the cellar and ask the guys if he can help because he wasn't used to doing the job in the cellar, they will teach him and guide him what he should do and how he should do it. And he never came as a boss in the cellar and said, okay, teach me this and then tells them how it should be done. He was one of those who's like, okay, and then he will give suggestions to say, I think actually you can do it easier this way. So like, yeah, that's one of the things that made me realize like he's a leader. He's not a boss. He was leading, he was teaching people through his way of doing things. And also he was very entrepreneurial. And I was like, you know what, I want to start my own company but I want to be a leader, So I was involved in marketing and everything. I knew it was a step closer to me starting my own company. So when in 2011, when I met Mika Bulmash, we discussed that from the US, and we discussed that she was having an idea of doing collaboration for winemakers. And I was like, I'm in. And so she introduced me to Helen Keplinga. We did a collaboration of my 2012 vintage, which we made wine that was sold in the US. And for me, that was a stepping stone to actually starting my own company. And then we did the second collaboration in 2013. And then in 2013, I also did some consultation in France where I made a wine, the Winemakers Collection. And 2015, I was invited by the US Consulate to be part of the African Women Entrepreneurship Program. And with that, I met women from all over Africa, listening to their struggles, listening to what they do. And I was like, Ntsiki, you've been saying you want to start your company. So what is holding you back? And I remember we spoke, there was a lady who came doing a presentation while in the US. I think we were in Chicago. And then she spoke about knowing the reason why you want to do something. So it's knowing your why. And I was like, actually, why did I wanted to start my company instead of just staying employed? And then I remembered. And I realized that if I stay employed, I won't be able to fulfill that dream of actually helping my community. So I was like, I need to act somehow. But as you know, there's always fear. There's always fear. And you're like, but if I get out, how am I going to pay my bond? How am I going to do this? What am I going to, and then we've got all these things. And this one day while we were there, I think we were now on our last leg, we're in Washington. And the group of the ladies were with, so it's a friend of mine from Kenya, Zimbabwe, the Gambia, and Nigeria. They're like, oh, let's go have a drink. But we're going to Vava's room, one of my friends also. They were a Kenyan one. And I'm like, okay, cool. So we went, and I'm like, so when we got in, they go, actually, this is not about a drink. It's about you. And I was like, okay. And they're like, so now the question is, when are you stopping taking drugs? And I was like, guys, I'm not on drugs, And they're like, Ntsiki, you are on drugs. And like literally they had these serious faces. And I was like, guys, I've never taken drugs in my life. Unless you say wine is a drug, then they're like, you are on drug. You're on drugs, your salary is a drug. That's why you're not jumping. And I was like, they're like, you are on drugs. You can't wait for this fix at the end of the month. And that's why you're not jumping. I was like, okay. And I realized, like literally we've got all these women who've decided they're not getting out of this without really telling me exactly what should happen. And like this intervention, and they're like, okay.
But those are good friends.
They're really good friends. And the interesting thing, like we just met on the trip, which was great. But it was like we just met actually on that trip. So we stood there and we talked, and I was like, okay, fine, guys, I'll have to figure out. They go, no, just jump. There's nothing to figure out, just jump, because you will never jump if you don't. So I came back, that was early September, and then October, and then November I resigned. And then I sent it to a WhatsApp group because we had a group, and I'm like, okay, I've resigned. And everyone was excited. And I was like, guys, you don't understand. I don't know what excites you.
So what was your first step? Did you already have a game plan, a business plan for what this business might look like?
Actually, everything was in place. It was like everything was in place. I even had wines, which I needed to bottle. I had Cabernet 2014, I needed to bottle that. I had the blend, which I needed to bottle. So I had about 6,000 liters, which was going to give me about 9,000 bottles as a start that I'd already done, because the plan was I was going to stay in this company until my company grows on the side. That was really the plan. And my friend said, no, but it's going to take longer if you stay where you are, because you're going to still have a comfort zone. So create this thing and just jump into it. So when I resigned, I had this wine that it means I must go sell it. And when I resigned, I spoke to my importer, Mika, to say, okay, fine, I've just resigned, and this and this and this is the amount of wine I have. And she was like, you know that we haven't started marketing the brand. You know how difficult that's going to be. She was like, you are supposed to stay until we get to the right position. And I was like, my mentor was terrified. And he goes, how could you do that? And I was like, I had to. And he goes, so how much do you have right now that is cash? I'm like, I've got about 40,000 Rand besides the money for bottling. So once I've bottled, I'm actually only going to have 40,000 Rand. And he was like stressed. I could hear his voice. And I said, don't worry, it's going to work. Don't worry. I've got this all figured out.
So what was it that gave you that confidence that you just knew that this was going to work?
I actually cannot tell you. I don't know. But I knew. Somehow I knew. I knew it's going to work, but I don't know how. I think one of the things that, I always talk to my friend, we talk about, we are spiritual beings. And because we're spiritual beings, sometimes we don't listen to our spirit. We don't listen to the voice of God. And we don't, or we do, but we disregard everything. Prior for me to resign, there were a lot of things that were happening. And my friend at some point, she said, in what shape do you want God to come to you and said, actually, you're supposed to be getting out? And I was like, I don't know. And she's like, oh, well, as far as I can see on my side, he's come in all different shapes and sizes. And still, you're still holding on. And I remember there were people that I didn't expect to go, you're supposed to get out. It's now the time. And I was like, yeah. It's like, yeah. But you're like thinking, no. So I don't know. I knew that it's going to work. But I cannot actually tell you that these were the signs.
So Ntsiki, you start your company. Tell me about the name. Why did you name it that?
So what happened was in 2014, when I was with Helen and Mika in California, Helen Keplinger, so we went to blend our second collaboration. And we were talking with Helen, and I told her that I'm starting my own company. And she's like, so what are you going to name your company? So I said to her, I plan to name it after my grandmother. And then she's like, tell me about your grandmother. So I told her about my grandmother. And we spoke. And then she's like, so what's your grandmother's name? That was at the end. And I'm like, her name is Aslina. And literally, we all raised our glasses without anyone saying, let's raise our glasses. We raised our glasses and said to Aslina. And that was it. I had known all along that I was going to name my company after my grandmother.
Why had you known? Tell me about your grandmother and why was she so important to you?
Well, I had known, I remember, because people were saying, but your name is known, so you need to name your company with your name. And I was like, I'm not worthy to be named of anything. I haven't done anything. With her, she's basically done so much. She was the head of the family. Everybody would run to her. She was sort of, hence even one of the one I use her nickname, because they used to call her as the Sasane, which is the acacia tree, which is the umbrella tree, the protector, and everything else. For me, she represented love at its best. Love in its totality. It's difficult to actually explain, but she was the love.
Did she know about the name? Did she know that you wanted to name your company after her?
No, she didn't. But I went to my aunt and I told her that I'm going to name my company after my grandmother. And she was like, that's the best thing you could do because you were her favorite. Well, I was her favorite and I knew that. And yeah, I was my grandmother's favorite. And I always say, I am my grandmother's daughter in a way.
What do you think your grandmother would say to Ntsiki, who's talking to me today? What do you think she would say about Aslina wines and everything that you've been able to achieve so far?
She had always said to me, it's like one of those, like, go and fly. She had always said to me, she knows I will do great things. Well, whenever she said that, I always thought, because it never made sense to me. At that moment, it never made sense to me. And I was like, well, you look at the place around you, look at the village and you're like, how is that going to happen? She always knew.
So you start Aslina Wines, and I know that the life of an entrepreneur is not an easy one. So what have been your biggest challenges so far in your life as an entrepreneur and as a winemaker?
Well, challenges. I don't know really if I were to talk about challenges. I think I've always thought I'm not a person who implements things. I'm not good in implementation. But apparently I am. Other people say so. But I still think I'm not. Even though the proof I've seen that I am an implementer, because starting a company has been one of the things to put things into place and put things to where they're supposed to be and plan and organize and do all those things. I think with most entrepreneurs, the biggest challenge is to, when you're starting a company, to just have money that is stashed so that you can do things freely. I always thought I wanted that, to have it like that. But whenever people ask me, can we give you money? And I'm like, the way you're asking the question, I don't know what to do with the money, even though I know what I need. When I started, I knew that I want to make 2 cents and take that 2 cents to go buy to make 3 cents, That's how I had planned it, and that's how I've planned I was going to grow it. And I don't know if I could do that with the abundance. I would be able to do it, but it's just, I don't think I will feel that I worked.
What's your biggest dream for the brand?
To be international. And currently the company doesn't have a home, it's renting. So the company has to have its own home. So those are things we're working towards, to have our own facility, our own production facility, few vineyards around. But most importantly, the company has to be able to give back. That is the goal of it, is that it has to be assisting people.
Ntsiki, you've mentioned several times during our conversation about giving back and wanting to give back. Why is that so important to you? Because for many entrepreneurs, this would be about, I want to grow this company to, X amount of revenue. I want it to be this massive size. Why is giving back so important to you?
It is important because I am where I am because somebody gave back. If they didn't, I might not have been here. The company is named after someone who believes in that. So it is my core. It's in my heart. It's me.
What's been the greatest surprise for you on this journey?
I think when I was launching in the US, I knew that it's going to work, but I didn't think it was going to work the way it did. When I was launching, I remember in New York, it was, when the restaurant is packed full that people say it's fine, we will stand. I was overwhelmed. And the reception was amazing. It just, the reception has been beyond my imagination.
Ntsiki, let's go back to wines. So tell me about the wines that Aslina produces and why you produce those particular wines.
When I had planned to start my company, when I remember was 2008, trying to draft my business plan then. I still always look at my 2008 business plan, even though the one that I work on for Aslina is different, but I kept my 2008 business plan. I had said I wanted to make sparkling wine and I was going to make an MCC and Pinot Noir. It was because those are the wines that celebration and also Pinot Noir being one of those fragile kids on the block. And then when I started and I was like, you know what, the reality is people know Cabernet Sauvignon, they know Sauvignon Blanc, they know Chardonnay, they know blends. So I had to start with the mainstream varietals because that is easily accessible and people know that. And that serves the broader spectrum compared to the Pinot Noir and the MCCs.
Ntsiki, what's MCC? I don't know what that means.
Oh, sorry, it's we call it MCC. Okay, it's a shortened version of saying Method de Cap Classic, which is a champagne actually, but because in South Africa we can't call it champagne, so we call it an MCC.
So have you actually launched the MCCs, or is that something you're looking to do in the future?
That will be the future thing. And everyone has been saying there cannot be Aslina without an MCC. That's just not right. She is the celebration. There cannot be. And I'm like, guys, everything in good time.
And so, Ntsiki, what's next for you?
Well, currently I'm still building. So the next is just really to build the company, get a home. So it's still in the building stage. Because even now, currently, in terms of volumes, basically the wine is on allocations. So I still need to produce to get to the point that I can get everyone have the wine. Even though it's on allocation, everyone is getting little.
What does that mean when you say it's on allocations?
Like now, I just bottled my 2016 and the US, they told me how much they were looking to get on this vintage. But I'm only giving them half of what they want. Japan came on board. So basically what it means at this moment, new clients who wants to order more volumes, I can't give them.
And that's a function of what? Is that a function of you not having enough of your own grapes, or what is that?
That's what it is, and also a function of funds to be able to produce the volume at the moment. The way I grow, growing in a cautious manner.
So you've almost got the opposite problem of what most people would have as a problem, is that you don't actually have enough wine to fulfill the demand that's coming your way.
Yeah. But also, I can't produce too much because I need to make sure of the quality. I need to put my finger on it. I need to put my fingerprints on this. So the way I'm growing is the way I'm managing it.
Ntsiki, you're an incredibly inspiring woman, and I know you've spoken about the influence that your grandmother had on your life and her inspiration of you as you were growing up. And I'm interested to know, who are some women that you look up to or who've inspired you along your journey?
Yes. One of my sisters, Nkonzo, she's very spiritual. She is a very spiritual person, and I look up to her. I think when talking about inspiration, we've got different people who gives us different things. Like my grandmother, it's more for strength and being zealous and being, just where you know that nothing's going to stop you. You'll give and do anything possible, anything good to get to where you need to. And while my sister, she's very spiritual and she teaches me a lot of stuff.
What's the best advice that you've ever been given?
To keep your feet on the ground and your head above the cloud.
And what are you most grateful for right now, Ntsiki?
I'm most grateful for family and friends. So in other words, I'm most grateful for love.
And right now, what are you most afraid of?
Shoo. Have I thought about that? What is that I'm most afraid of? I can't say I'm afraid to fail, because what I know is that failure is it's an education. So it has never been one of the things that scare me.
And what are you most excited about right now?
I'm one of those who, I don't know, I'm just excited with anything that comes, really.
So, Ntsiki, of your current wines, which one is your favorite?
Oh, see, I can answer that. That wasn't difficult. Umsasane.
And why is that?
It's a Bordeaux blend, and 2, it is my grandmother's nickname. I remember when I named this wine, it's Aslina Umsasane, and one of the ladies in the industry, she was like, she's doing marketing, and she's like, you know what, you're going to struggle to sell this one because of the name. And I said, you know what, people do call the French wines whatever, and people pronounce them. And I said, if somebody wants it, they'll know the name and they'll call it by name. And I'm not changing this name. This is my language. And I've always wanted to have something that's going to be in my language. And it happened to be my favorite, and it happened to be everyone's favorite too. Everyone who tastes it, it becomes their favorite.
So you think that's where I should start my wine drinking with them,
exactly.
Sasane?
And everyone end up calling it a double dose of grandma.
So, Ntsiki, this is something that you mentioned several times throughout our conversation. And maybe this is just a function of me not knowing anything about wines. But you said several times about blends. So what is a blend?
It's a mix. I'm going to call it a mixture. We mix basically different grape varietals. Like that one, it's a mixture of Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc, and Petit Verdot. So we call mixing in the wine language, it's blending.
What would you say is the hardest part about winemaking?
I don't think there's any hardest part. It's always challenging and exciting because each and every year is not the same. This is art and this is science, so you have to combine the two. It's always exciting actually when you're blending because you're looking at your analysis and then you're tasting the wine and then, you're just doing the whole thing and playing with the wine basically. I call it playing with the wine when you're blending because you mix this and then you're like, okay, this doesn't work. Let's mix that one and you see what comes out.
Okay, so we're going to switch gears. We're going to do one last thing, which is a super quick thing. And it's a quick fire round. So this one should go by really fast. I don't want you to think about it. I just want you to tell me the first thing that comes to mind. So I'm going to ask you some questions and just say the first thing that comes to mind. Okay?
Yes.
All right. Describe yourself in 3 words.
Love, gutsy, and feisty.
When you hear the word successful, who's the first person that comes to your mind?
It's my grandmother.
What's your favorite book?
A Return to Love by Marianne Williamson.
Favorite gift to give?
It's a book and wine.
Favorite gift to receive?
It can be anything, really.
What's the favorite thing about the place you live right now?
I've got more access to nature.
Favorite item of clothing?
It's dress.
Favorite time of day and why?
Afternoon, because then I'm cheerful at that time. I don't like people waking me up at crack of dawn.
Name 2 people you'd like to have dinner with and why?
It's my older sister, because she always keeps me grounded and she always reminds me who I am. And I'd like to have dinner with Michelle Obama. I think I've got questions. She speaks a lot about helping women, about girls, about stuff. And I just want to tap into that. How does she combine these to try and sort out, to talk about the girls? How does she see it coming out in terms of having each individual actually doing their little bit?
What's your favorite meal or thing to eat, speaking about dinner?
Well, I love pap. I love pap, mealie pap, because if I don't have that, I cannot live without that for a month. I'll have to have it with chakalaka and a bit of meat.
What can't you get through the day without?
Prayer.
And what is the screensaver on your phone?
On my phone, it's me and my sister.
Other than your phone and your wallet, what do you carry with you every day?
By chance, sometimes I always have a bottle of wine. Oh, no, it's my corkscrew. That it always get taken out of at the airport sometimes. That's bad. No, I've got my corkscrew in my handbag.
You never know when you might need it, right?
I always have my corkscrew in my handbag because handbag is always going to be there. So, but like, who walks around with a corkscrew?
What's the favorite place that you've ever visited?
I think I've enjoyed Italy. It's because it reminded me, okay, guys there reminded me of more of Zulu men. They don't pass the woman on the road. They greet you. They tell you how special you are. And that's what Zulu men do in the rural areas. So like, it was like I'm at home. I was like, oh my word. While the European style of life, actually, it's like people watch you and walk past. And in Italy, men don't walk past a woman. They always speak. There's always going to be something. So, yeah, that was my actually favorite place.
And what's the song that would be the theme song of your life?
That's difficult. I used to like a lot One Moment in Time by Whitney Houston. That was what I used to play when I'm going to write my exams.
What's your worst habit?
My worst habit is I love sleeping. Like when I'm working at home, I like working in bed. I don't want to sit on the table. Or on the desk. I want to sit under my covers and I can work comfortably.
Ntsiki, it has been such a joy speaking with you. Thank you so much for making time. I know you're very busy. Thank you for making time to speak with me and to share the story of Aslina Wines. I wish you continued success as you grow this amazing brand and as you take it to the world. And I hope more and more people are going to try your wines. And I may possibly just be tempted to try one of your wines now that I've spoken to you. Before we end, I'd like to ask you one more question, please. This platform is called Ndini, which in my mother tongue, Shona, I'm from Zimbabwe, means I am. Please could you finish that sentence for me? I am.
I am love. For me, love is the key every time. I'm like, I believe I am the love that I need. I am the love that the world needs. I am the love.
You've been such a joy to talk to.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.
You take care. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Ndini podcast. I don't take even a single listener for granted. As you know, my goal with this platform is to help shift and change the narrative on Africa, and in particular about African women. But I need your help to do that. Please subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or Stitcher. You can also follow us on SoundCloud. And please share. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to leave a review on iTunes. It helps me to bring great guests to the show, and it also helps others discover the podcast. And of course, I always want to hear from you. I'd love to hear your thoughts on my conversation with our guest today and what you took away from it or what inspired you. I'd also love to hear from you if you have suggestions for other women you think I should absolutely have on the show. Our handle on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook is @Ndini Media. Or you can reach out to me through our website, which is ndini.com. That's NDINI.com. Until next time, I'm Sandra Chuma. Be well.